Okay, next assignment. Now you will see two parentheses that have x inside of them, two parentheses with x inside. Even though you don't see x to the second power is there because we have x times x. That's x to the second. This is what's known as factored form, and it's much different than the others. So let's look at this first example. We have two parentheses here, each containing an x inside. So even though we don't see x to the second, it's there because if I take x times x, that's x to the second, but you don't want to do that. You don't want to multiply it out, okay? You don't want to use the rainbows. Don't ever use the rainbows to graph an equation. There's a better way every time. And this is what's called factored form. So when I have two x's, that's factored form. It's a parabola. And there's a negative in front, so it's going to look like this. Now here's how we graph it. Make your table. Set both expressions in the parentheses equal to 0. So what do you have in the first parentheses? X plus 3. Put that equal to 0. And what do you have in the other parentheses? X minus 5. Set that equal to 0. Okay, now to solve for the actual x, I will solve each equation. These are your first and last x's. Okay, so I subtract 3, and x is negative 3. And then I plus 5, and x is 5. Now in the last assignment, you only had one parentheses, and whatever you got here was your middle, but now you have two of them. Well, they can't both be the middle, so instead what I do is I use these as my first and last x, okay? So negative 3 and 5. Now to find the middle x, you need to add the first and last x and divide the sum by 2. It's what's known as finding the average, okay? So to find the average, I add these two x's, negative 3 plus 5, and that equals 2. And then I divide that sum I just got by 2, okay? Why are you doing it by 2? Because there's two numbers. So I divide by 2, and 2 divided by 2 is 1. Okay, and now to find the y's, replace the x's on the calculator. The first and third should always be equal to 0 in factored form. So I have negative 2, and then parentheses, instead of x plus 3, we're going to go negative 3 plus 3, which is 0. And then another parentheses, instead of x minus 5, it's negative 3 minus 5. Okay, so that gives me a 0 product. Because negative 3 plus 3 is 0, then the whole product's 0. Okay, now I'm going to put 1 plus 3 and 1 minus 5. So negative 2, parentheses, 1 plus 3, and then 1 minus 5. Okay, and that gives me 32. Now this also needs to be 0. So I've got negative 2, and I'll be putting in 5 plus 3 and 5 minus 5. Some of you are like, well, 5 minus 5 is 0, so if one of the factors is 0, wouldn't the whole thing be 0? You got it, okay? Okay, so negative 3, 0, so 1, 2, 3. Positive 1 and 32, so I go to 1, and then 32 I probably need to count by 5. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, and 32. Okay, and then 5, 0, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And these parabolas are always pretty wide, okay? Okay, the next problem. Set both expressions in the parentheses equal to 0. Again, it's in factored form. We got two x's, meaning we have x to the second, even though you don't see the second. We have a positive in front, and there's two parentheses, so that is factored form. Okay, so I make my table. Set both the expressions in the parentheses equal to 0. So in the first parentheses, I have x plus 1. Put equals 0 after it. x minus 3, put equals 0 there. Solve each equation, and these are your first and last x's. So I'm minus 1, and I get negative 1 for my first one. Plus 3, I get positive 3 for my second. So negative 1 and positive 3 are the first and last. Now to find the middle x, you need to add the first and last x, these two here, and divide that sum by 2. So I add negative 1 plus 3, and that's 2, and then we got to divide 2 by 2, and that's 1. So 1 is going to be, again, my middle x. It's not always 1. Okay, now if you got one of these calculators, you're going to do it the same way, but you got to hit times on these calculators here before you get to do the parentheses. So you got 5. Before I hit parentheses, I got a times, and then parentheses, instead of x plus 1, it's negative 1 plus 1. Close the parentheses, and then you got to hit times again before you make your second parentheses. And we're going to put, instead of x minus 3, it's going to be negative 1 minus 3. Close it, hit equals, and I got 0. Okay, now it's going to be 1 plus 1 and 1 minus 3. So 5 times parentheses, and then 1 plus 1, close it, times parentheses 1 minus 3. Close that, and then hit equals, and you got negative 20. Okay, then 3. So 5 times, and then 3 plus 1, and 3 minus 3, parentheses 3 plus 1, close it, times parentheses 3 minus 3. Close that, hit equals, and you get 0. Okay, so negative 1, 0, I go left 1 and stay. 1, negative 20, I go 1. I'm going to go by 5, so 5, 10, 15, 20. If 5 doesn't work, try 10s. So 3, 0, 1, 2, 3. And that is my parabola. Okay, next problem, I see 2 x's, so I know there's a parabola. Okay, there's no negative here, so it's going to look like this, and it's 2 separate x's, so it's in factored form. Okay, so what's in my first parentheses? X minus 4, put that equal to 0. What's in your other parentheses? X plus 2, put that equal to 0. And you solve each equation. These are your first and last x's. So plus 4, I get 4 for x. Minus 2, and I get negative 2 for x. Okay, so 4 and negative 2 serve as my first and last x. Now to find the middle x, you need to add the first and last x and then divide the sum by 2. So I take 4 plus negative 2, put what that equals before you divide. That's 2, and then divided by 2 equals 1. Okay. So now I'll go back to the good calculator. So I have a parentheses, and I'll punch in 4 minus 4. Then another parentheses, and 4 plus 2. I got 0. Okay, now I'm going to put 1 in for each x. So parentheses 1 minus 4, close it, and then parentheses 1 plus 2, close that. And I got negative 9. Okay, now I'm going to punch in negative 2, so parentheses negative 2 minus 4, close it, and then parentheses negative 2 plus 2, and close it. And that's 0. So 4, 0, I go 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, negative 9, I go 1. I probably need to go by 2s. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Negative 2, 0, so I go left 2, and then just stop. Okay, again, it's a parabola, just like that. Okay, and then my last example, we have, since there's 2 x's, x is actually to the second power. Okay, so it's a parabola. You have a negative in front, so it opens downwards. and it's in factored form. Okay, so set both expressions in the parentheses equal to 0. So x plus 2 equals 0. X minus 4 equals 0. So you subtract 2 from both sides, you get negative 2. X equals negative 2. And then plus 4. X equals positive 4. Those are my first and third x's. Okay, and then to find the average, to find the middle x, you need to add the first and last x and divide the sum by 2. So I take negative 2 plus 4, that's equal to 2. But then I need to divide by 2, and that's 1. You're always dividing the sum by 2. I don't care what this ends up as when you add, it's divided by 2, so that's 1. Okay, so I have negative 4, parentheses, and then negative 2 plus 2, close it. Another parentheses, and then negative 2 minus 4. And you got 0. Now to do 1 plus 2, 1 minus 4. So negative 4, parentheses, 1 plus 2, 1 minus 4. Okay, and I got 36. Then 4, so negative 4, parentheses, 4 plus 2, and then 4 minus 4. I got 0 there. Okay, so negative 2, 0, I go left 2 and stop. 136, I go right 1, then up 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 36. 4, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay.